Good evening, and I'd like to welcome you and call to order our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Monday, November the 17th. I would like to acknowledge that I am an ally of Indigenous peoples. The Township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and traditional territory and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous peoples who call Lucan Biddulph home. We endeavor to unlearn colonial mindsets and practices and to grow in knowledge. As we build meaningful relationships, we recognize contributions of Indigenous peoples and respect their leadership and partnership in shaping and strengthening our community. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? And I will just note for anybody that is watching us online that the Deputy Mayor is joining us virtually. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome back Councillor Reagan. He's had to join us virtually the last couple meetings, so it's great to have you in the chambers. We find ourselves in the middle of November, and I want to take this opportunity to remind everybody of the Movember campaign. Movember is an annual month-long campaign held every November in Canada to raise awareness and funds for men's health issues. Movember Canada supports programs and research in three major areas: prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and men's mental health and suicide prevention. Funds raised through Movember help support research and awareness, detection and early intervention initiatives. For more information, please visit ca.movember.com. And I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Legion on the success of their Poppy campaign. This year's campaign was their most successful yet, and they raised $8,739.55. All monies raised will go towards supporting Canadian veterans and their families. So thank you to Lucan Biddulph for your support, and to our Legion volunteers, well done. Okay. We do not need to go into public session or closed session, sorry. We don't need to go into closed session, but we do have to move into the Committee of Adjustment, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder to do that at 7 minutes after 6 to sit as the Committee of Adjustment under the Planning Act. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So the first application in front of us is for a minor variance application for a property in Granton. And Alyssa, I will turn it over to you at this time.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose and effect of the minor variance application before committee is to permit the construction of a 100 square meter detached garage, which exceeds the maximum lot coverage for accessory structures by 7.4% and also exceeds the maximum permitted accessory building height by 0.97 meters. The proposed detached structure will replace an existing garage at the rear of the property, which is to be removed. The subjected property is an 809.37 square meter lot situated on the east side of Queen Street, north of Isabella Street. The lands are municipally known as 438 Queen Street, and the property contains an existing single detached dwelling and detached garage. The property is designated residential under the official plan and is zoned residential first density in the zoning bylaw. This zone permits residential uses and their associated accessory uses. The lands are surrounded by low-density residential on all sides. No comments were provided by the public on this report. A comment was provided by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, stating that they have no objections to the application. And the Lucan Biddulph Building Department has also commented that they have no objections. I have reviewed the application against the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and as indicated in the report, I'm satisfied that the requested additional lot coverage and height for an accessory structure would not cause negative impacts to adjacent properties due to its location, and it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. Therefore, I'm recommending approval of minor variance application A4 2025. Thank you.
Thank you for that. At this time, I know that the agent for the applicant is joining us virtually, and I would ask Mr. Johnston, do you have any comments to make at this time? You're muted, or we have no sound. No. No sound. Maybe turn the volume up. I don't know. Oh. Okay, so we're not getting any sound from you, Mr. Johnson. What I think I'll open it up for questions from the committee. And if there are any that are directed to you, perhaps you could answer them through the chat feature. Okay, so now I will look to the committee for any questions or comments on this application. Councillor Westman.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the property and I don't have any objections to it. I think it's not a big deal.
Okay. And I don't believe there's anybody here in the public for this property. So there's nothing being directed at you, Mr. Johnson, so that makes that easy. We have a recommended motion in front of us. And the recommended motion, I won't read the whole thing, but is that the application be granted. And as Alyssa stated, why she was making that recommendation. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we now have a consent application for a property on Elginfield Road. And Alyssa, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. There are two applications being brought forward tonight regarding the same property at 15552 Elginfield Road. These applications, specifically for a consent and zoning bylaw amendment, will be addressed together in this presentation, and they are noted as agenda items 6.1B and 6.2A. The applicant is seeking to dispose of a dwelling deemed surplus to a farming operation by way of a land purchase and sale. They propose to sever a lot with a frontage of 32 meters on Elginfield Road in an area of 0.7 hectares, containing an existing single detached dwelling and a shed. The balance of the farm would be merged with the neighboring property to the west that's also owned by the applicant, providing for a total farm area of 35.5 hectares and 192.7 meters of frontage along Elginfield Road. The applicant has applied for a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment, which proposes to rezone the retained agricultural lands from the special agricultural zone to an amended site-specific agricultural zone to restrict its use to agricultural purposes and recognize a reduced minimum lot area. It would also rezone the severed portion from the special agricultural zone to a site-specific surplus dwelling zone to permit a reduced minimum lot frontage and to permit the existing dwelling and its accessory building. The subject property as a whole is currently a 4.7 hectare lot on the north side of Elginfield Road, east of Granton Line. The lands are municipally known as 15552 Elginfield Road in the township of Lucan Biddulph, county of Middlesex. Surrounding land uses are agricultural and rural residential in nature. The property is designated agricultural according to the township and county official plans and is zoned special agricultural according to the township zoning bylaw. No comments were provided by the public prior to the development of this report. Provided agency comments include the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, Bell Canada, and Hydro One having no concerns. Middlesex County Emergency Services provided comments regarding 911 addressing, and the Lucan Biddulph Building Department providing comments about confirming septic location and change of use permit for the accessory building, which is to remain on the severed lands. As identified in the planning report, staff are of the opinion that the proposal is consistent with the provincial planning statement and conforms with both the county and township official plan and the provided surplus farm dwellings tests. Given the above, I'm recommending approval of the consent application B12-2025, subject to the conditions provided in the report and the zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 5-2025. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alyssa, for that one. I will let the committee know that the applicant is here in case there's any questions, and he's not going to say anything at the moment. Questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. I wanted to ask about the shape of the property. and the size of the property being severed off, just because looking at the policies, it does call for the severed parcel to be minimal, only the size required for, I think, servicing the property. So just with that L shape, with the part that goes into the rear behind the other properties, was there consideration through our policies for looking at including that as part of the agricultural lands? Was that considered at all?
Through the chair, the original, but prior to the application was fully complete, it was supposed to be kind of in line with the back of those residential properties, but it was identified that the septic bed for this property is actually behind the home, kind of in that area where that L shape is. So just to retain the private services on the severed lot and just to keep the trees to remain with the home, the size is still limited to being under 1 hectare. So that's the kind of consideration for the size.
Okay, thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to ask about was access to the property, just because it has a bit of a pull-through driveway. So how will access for the agricultural lands be achieved? Is that through the merging with the other property?
Through the chair, yes, you're correct. So it'll be merged with the property to the west. So they would be using whatever that existing access is on those lands to access this parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, you have a recommendation in front of you for the consent. As Alyssa said, her recommendation is that it be granted. I'm not going to read it. There are a fair number of conditions that are attached to the motion. I would remind anybody that's watching online that they can find all the conditions in the motion in its fullness online on our agenda. A mover and a seconder for the recommended motion in front of us. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. And we have now a consent application for a property on William Street. Alyssa.
Thank you, Chair. I'll also be speaking to the 2 applications together for 6024 William Street for the consent and zoning bylaw amendment together in this presentation. These are agenda items 6.1C and 6.2B. The applicant is seeking to sever the land designated residential within the settlement area boundary from the retained agricultural lands. Additionally, the applicant has applied for a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment, which proposes to rezone a portion of the severed lands to future residential to prepare the lands for a plan of subdivision application in the future. Its purpose is also to amend the site-specific general agricultural zone of the retained agricultural parcel to reflect a new minimum lot area provision of 33.65 hectares. The subject property as a whole is currently 53.679 hectares, located on the north side of William Street, east of Coursey Line. The lands are municipally known as 6024 William Street in the township of Lucan Biddulph, county of Middlesex. Surrounding land uses include agricultural, rural, residential, and open space. The retained lands are designated agricultural area according to the county and township official plans and is zoned a site-specific general agricultural zone according to the township zoning bylaw. The severed lands are designated settlement area according to the county official plan, and they are partially designated residential and industrial according to the township official plan, and are zoned a site-specific general agricultural zone and a general industrial holding zone according to the zoning bylaw. 3 letters were provided by the public regarding this application with similar concerns, including privacy, loss of farmland, drainage, and water management, and wanting to restrict the types of development in this area. Planning staff note that the applications being presented today do not include any approvals for a subdivision or any development. With these approvals today, the landowner still cannot build anything without further planning approvals. They are subject to a future public planning process where public comments related to the development of the property would be included through a public participation process for a plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment application. Provided agency comments include Middlesex County Emergency Services regarding 911 property addresses, the Middlesex County Engineer regarding land dedication for County Road 13, and Hydro One and the Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority providing general comments and no objection to the application. As identified in the planning reports, staff are of the opinion that the proposal is consistent with the provincial planning statement and conforms with both the county and township official plans. Given the above, I'm recommending approval of the consent application B13 2025, subject to the conditions provided in the report and the zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 6 2025, and that the bylaw be forwarded to council for consideration tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alyssa. At this time, I'll go to the applicant and ask, is there anything that you want to offer at this time? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And now to the members of public. Is there any comments that are wanting to be made to this application? Okay, come on up and I'll get you to turn the mic on. And just state your name and your address for the record, please.
Albert Stanley, 6181 William Street, Lucan, Ontario. I was going to say, I've got 7 concerns about this application. One is the loss of agricultural land, which is continually happening in southwestern Ontario and the immediate area. Number 2 is safety, because now we're looking at an additional, just say approximately 250 to 300 vehicles up and down William Street. Personally, I'll see a loss in my property value with, I'm going to say 40 to 80 townhouses built across the street from my place. And I know I'm not going to see a decrease of 20% in my property taxes. That never happens. And there's also pedestrian safety. Because I own a long strip and I open up my property for people that are walking to go on my land down to the end and then back because of the amount of traffic that is on the road. There's also sewage and service costs if this is approved. And that means the city's going to have to run a sewer line down to service this property, which they would do for this builder and developer, but they wouldn't do it for me. So I had to spend 30,000 plus on putting in a sewage system. And I do believe the person, there was a house that was just purchased at, I believe it's 6136 William Street, that the current owner who just bought this house has never been notified of this. The previous owner was, but I do not believe that information was passed on to the current owner. And he has a legal right to know what's going on in his backyard.
So I will stop you on that because there is a process that, and the planners can speak to that because we've run into that where there's an application and then there's a change of land. And there is a duty for a legal duty for the previous homeowner to let the new homeowner know of this meeting. We can't, and that's out of our control.
Yeah.
But
And then you've also got the added cost because with that much vehicle flow, you're going to have to put in a set of traffic lights at William and the main street, right where the Bank of Montreal is. And you know how long it took to do the ones at Tim Hortons and the cost. And that's something the developer is not going to pay for. So those are my concerns. And I mean, I bought my property 3 years ago, built my own place, and I like to think it was almost secluded. I would not have bought that property. I would not have built it if I'd have known they were going to be putting, 60 to 80, whatever townhouses across the street. Kind of defeats the purpose of moving into, lovely Lucan in a nice quiet town.
So we've got your comments. If you've got them written, you can leave those comments for the record. But I just want to also remind you of what our planner spelt out is that this application in front of us tonight is not for the not for a development. We don't know what may or may not be coming. This is just to sever the land and to get the proper zoning and holding in place. There will be a more further public process of which I would encourage you to participate when that happens. Because definitely those concerns, would be, it would be appropriate at that time to raise those concerns at that time. And then I would also say, we do have the developer here, and maybe there's opportunity to have a conversation to express those to him directly. Okay, but if you've got a written copy of those, I would encourage you to leave those comments for the record.
Very good.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the committee? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, I guess just to reiterate what the planner said at the start of this is, again, the gentleman that just spoke, which you mentioned it, I just kind of wanted to reinforce that those comments will have to be re-brought up and concerns and addressed at a future meeting. And I just think it's important that we know what we're dealing with today and will potentially be dealing with in the future. So I just wanted to reiterate what you said, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Regan.
Thank you very much. I was just going to just echo what the deputy mayor just said. I'm just wondering just about the timeline for, all of these concerns, and I've read the concerns, I've listened to your concerns, and I've read the other concerns that they had. And this is all being brought up at the public meeting down the road. And I'm just wondering if we know how far down the road this might be. There's no way of knowing, or
It's whenever an application,
whenever the application comes.
whenever an
So it could be-
application comes in.
Right. Okay, fair enough. Okay, no, I just have nothing further right now, so sorry. No.
That is important. Yes, the CA reminded me, but not until we have proper sewer capacity. So,
Okay, great, thank you. All right.
Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, with the rezoning of the lands within the settlement area from the agricultural zoning to what they're being rezoned to, is that land still able to be utilized agriculturally in the interim period?
Through the chair, yes, it can be used as it is, but there's no change to how it can be developed until those further planning processes come through. So it can remain as is, but nothing can be changed.
Okay, so if it's used for crop production, say,
Exactly. So if
can
the
continue to
application
be-
doesn't come for 2 years.
Yeah, it's not just gonna sit there and
Dan.
Yeah, so through the chair, maybe just a quick point of clarification. So the future residential zone still permits existing activities to occur on the lands. It just precludes any type of additional development from occurring. So they wouldn't be able to go and develop anything at this particular point in time. They can continue to use it as farmland until it's subject to that future planning, public application, and established whatever the zoning and development rights would be for that property.
okay, thank you. And a different question, if I may, Madam Mayor. Just looking at the map itself and the zoning boundaries, there's a bit of a kind of a rectangle there. Within the part to be lands to be severed, there's that rectangle on the top piece of it. Yes, right where the mouse is there. And I'm just wondering, is that still a part of this property? You're just kind of wondering what exactly is happening there with that zoning.
Through the chair, I do believe that is part of this property. So through the rezoning that's part of to be severed, then that would also be part of the future residential zoning that is to apply.
Okay, Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to verify that because you can't really see the white property lines under the zoning lines. I just wanted to verify that it's all part of the same property to be severed. And that's all I had. I was going to ask the same question that Councillor Regan asked, just about timeline for the future process, but we'll just wait and see for that. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions from the committee? Do you have anything else, Councillor Regan? Okay, okay. Okay, all right. So in front of us is a recommended motion for the consent. And as Alyssa said, she is recommending that it be granted. And again, like the prior one, I'm not going to read it. There are a number of conditions that are attached to it. And so if anybody's interested in that, they can find the full motion with the attached conditions through the agenda. A mover and a seconder for the consent application in front of us, Councillor Hodgins and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, now I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment at 6:30. And we will move into the public meeting of the Planning Act. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins, all in favor. And that's carried. Okay, Alyssa, I think you spoke to both of these, but is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Through the chair, no, that was everything. Thank you.
Okay, so the first one in front of us is the zoning application for the property on Elginfield, PL-19-2025. And the recommended motion for that application is to approve the zoning bylaw amendment application and that it be brought forward to us for consideration. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins, all in favor? And that's carried. So the second one is for the William Street property. And again, the application or the recommended motion is to approve it. But before I ask for a mover and a seconder, I just want to reiterate, and I could maybe look to the planning staff to confirm for the public comments that have been received, that there is yet perhaps another planning process ahead of us, that this is just for the separation of the lands, but that any other application that comes forward, it will be subject to public consultation.
Through the chair, yes, I can confirm that any development that is to happen in the future on these lands will require public planning process, and there will be public participation options for people to come back with the comments, and the comments that we have received, we will be keeping on file.
Thank you very much. So with that, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion in front of you for the William Street property. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders, all in favor. And that's carried. And a motion to adjourn our public planning meeting at 6:32 to reconvene our regular meeting. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan, all in favor. And that's carried. Okay. So that ends the planning portion or the public planning portion. Everybody's welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Right now, I'm going to take this opportunity to welcome up to our presenter's desk, Andrew Garland and Brock Spencer, who are joining us from BM Ross and providing us an update on the wastewater treatment plant project.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council, for having us. I'm Andrew Garland, the Andrew half of that duo, and my colleague Brock Spencer. And over the past month or so, our office has provided a couple of memos really focused on two different aspects related to the Lucan wastewater treatment plant expansion. One covering schedule updates for that project, and one to provide budget for contract admin and site review tasks following the award of tender. And so staff asked us to come tonight just to discuss each of those memos in a little bit more detail. So I'll do that now, starting with the schedule. And so backing up a little bit, as of June 2025 this year, around that time, an application was being made for grant money to help support this project. And as part of that application, different milestones were entered in the application. And at the time, we anticipated that we'd receive approvals from the Ministry of Environment in September of this year, and that we'd be tendering around the same time. And last month, like September came and went, and last month we provided a revised schedule that now indicates a December tender, so a few months behind. And we never feel very good about a project going later than planned. But from time to time, it does happen, and it's often for different reasons. So tonight, we provide a little bit more context of what we've experienced as part of the Lucan wastewater plant project. And to start off, I guess I'd say we've learned over the years that no two wastewater treatment plant projects are exactly alike. There's some lessons learned on some that are transferable to the next, and then there's some things that are different. And this is especially the case we found when working with an existing facility. And in that regard, maybe an analogy would be looking at, an extensive home renovation versus building a brand new home somewhere. At least from the contractors I've spoken with over the years, they'd indicate that planning for and scheduling a brand new home built on a greenfield site is a little bit more straightforward and easier to plan for than a big renovation, because until they get ripping up floors and drywall, they sometimes won't know what they find until getting to that point. And also kind of following that same analogy, renovating a home while a family continues to live there is a little bit more difficult in terms of staging and planning than constructing a new home when nobody is there. And likewise, keeping a wastewater treatment plant operational and continuing to treat sewage while undergoing expansion is more complicated than a greenfield site. So those are all things that we have to consider when setting up the design. The finished product is one thing, but the stages to get to that finished project is another. So in the case of your wastewater treatment plant, most of the facilities there are about 35 years old. There have been some upgrades and replacements over time, but most of it about 35 years old. And given that age, we knew there would be there were some knowns and some unknowns going into it. And one of the knowns was that there'd be a need to upgrade at least some of the electrical components due to changes in electrical code from the time that the plant was originally constructed. A significant challenge for us and for our partners in this have been that there's a general lack of detailed drawings for the electrical and control systems at the plant. And therefore, from the outset, the full extent of some of the upgrades required to bring the site up to current standards, that's required a few stages of investigation and some iterative design over the course of the design phase of the project. And as always, that never makes things simpler over time. It's only made things a little more complicated the more that we've discovered. And then again, going back to the home analogy, the need to keep this plant operational and treating sewage while undergoing expansion and upgrades also requires some special consideration. And again, we found that gets more complicated with the electrical and control side of things. So that's a little bit of background in the cause for a few months of delay here. I guess the good news items would be that the ministry approval is very near. We've seen a draft approval document from the ministry. We've reviewed and provided comments that we've been able to send back to them. It's now in their court to provide us with a final draft. There'll still be another opportunity to review that final draft, so we'll do that. We'll get operation staff to review it as well as township staff. And then once that has been past that final review, the ministry will issue the final document. The tender date we've now set for middle of December, and we have really the detailed electrical drawing package, most of it, with the rest of it apparently to arrive tomorrow. And again, even though that's several months later than was anticipated in June, from our perspective, and again, talking to other contractors and kind of experience over the years has been that whether this is tendered in late fall and awarded then or very early in the new year, reality is that construction won't start until the spring after a thaw and conditions improve. And as a result, we don't believe there'd be any noticeable impact to project schedule if contractors aren't going to start until spring anyways. So we're for this scale of project, and again, just looking at other recent projects in the industry like this, you know, both our own, but others we've seen, we're anticipating probably about 2 years for construction from start to finish on this. And the tender documents will state a required completion date of June 2028, which would still be well in advance of the March 31st, 2029 construction deadline within your grant that you've received. Maybe before I then talk about budgets related to contract admin and site review, I would just ask if you'd like to do it this way, ask if there's questions related to schedule, and then get into that part of the budget, just for different considerations.
All right, so on the schedule, are there any comments or questions? Council this time. Deputy Mayor Manders.
No, I guess your one comment on the delay was time to investigate. I'm assuming to investigate the electrical and investigate things there. I assume that's so that it'll be clear for the people when they're quoting the tender then, and not be as many or if any unknowns then, and people can confidently quote this tender, and we should expect I guess we've had a lot of different projects in Lucan Biddulph, whether it be the soccer fields to the arena. We struggle sometimes with the engineers holding the construction companies or who's doing the build accountable to kind of our expectations. And it sounds like you've done more, a lot of due diligence on this before going to the tender. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And I'm hoping that is the case.
I believe I understand the question. It is a good one. If I missed the mark with my response here, just ask it again. But yeah, from our perspective, one good thing to keep in mind is that whenever we're dealing with an existing facility, we do really try to take steps towards due diligence and the investigation. There's still a possibility of finding unknowns along the way. And so for a project like this, we always recommend carrying a contingency allowance in the tender because it could be finding an unknown, or we've even seen this a number of times where partway through a construction process, a different idea is thought of, or the operator points out something that maybe it'd be nicer to shift this or change that. So we try to capture that by having a reasonably sized contingency allowance to allow for those changes still within the overall approved budget for the project. And so that does happen. Wouldn't say it happens very often that contingency allowance would be exceeded in projects that we've had in recent years. And trying to look at it objectively, I do think that is because we have a pretty good team of designers, not only our own staff, but subs we work with. It can take a little more time and effort on the front end. We do believe it is reflected by having fewer unknowns and fewer lower risk of arguing with contractors, and that once the building time comes. I would never name names, but I've worked with maybe a couple of other sub-consultants where things have been rushed through a little more or done for a little lower budget on the front end, which looks nice at the time, and then is not nice when you get to the construction phase and find surprises for things that weren't caught. So from our perspective, we think it's been a pretty thorough job. It has required a few iterations over time and some additional investigation, but we think the that will be well balanced with minimizing risk for changes and unknowns come construction time.
Okay, no, that answered the question. It will be interesting when you go to review tenders with our staff, and certainly with this size of project and scope and the importance of it. I'm not, typically it's always low tender gets awarded, but on this one, I hope we're cautious of quality and historical maybe events of whoever does quote this. It's going to be interesting. Holding everybody accountable. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question on the order of operations, because you said that we're waiting on the MECP approval, and it's very near. And is that sort of the last step that we have to, and the last hurdle we have to clear until we're ready to tender? Are we waiting to tender until we have that in place, the MECP permit or approval?
Yeah, another excellent question. At this point in time, given it's so imminent that we get that final approval, I would say it's no longer any kind of holdup for the tendering process. It's really getting the drawings and specifications to support the tender totally finalized on our end. Even if we didn't have the very finalized version from the ministry by middle of December, I would suggest that that wouldn't be grounds to hold up the tender anymore. We've done that lots of times before, where we put right in the tender ad that, or an addendum to the contract, indicate that ministry approval has been applied for. We anticipate getting it by such and such a date. We can still tender, and you can still award in advance of having that approval document finalized. You just don't want to start constructing until that approval is in hand.
Okay, thank you. And one more question. It's not exactly on schedule, but just looking ahead to the tender and maybe further to Deputy Mayor's question, just more curious, the types of contractors that might be bidding this. Do you have a sense of who some of the main contractors are? Like, are we going to attract, I think, like bigger ones from out of town who would mobilize in for this, or is it kind of local contractors, or a bit of a mix?
We would expect a bit of a mix for this scale of project. If it was something an order of magnitude smaller, you might only attract some local contractors. There might not be the incentive for larger outfits to mobilize to a site like this. That being said, it's not a $100 million project either that would bring in some of the really big fish from different places. So I'd expect, given the scale, to see a mix. I'd expect, given the time of year, there will be some contractors definitely looking to line up their work for 2026, 2027. So that'll be different than if you had like a mid-year tender. It's I guess in that sense kind of well timed as they plan for work ahead. And then just this is a little bit anecdotal, but again, from what we've seen on some of our own recent tenders and then from other colleagues in the industry, for this kind of work, there seems to be a general appetite in contractors out there. There maybe hasn't been as much of this kind of work over the past 12 months. And that's never a good feeling if there's only one or two bidders show up. But from what we've seen, I would anticipate there's going to be reasonably good interest for something like this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. It seems like we always get a ton of bidders on our projects and very competitive bidding. So fingers crossed we get that.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Councillor
I
Regan.
did. I think it might have already been answered, but I was just concerned about how the delay is going to affect the cost and the availability of people that are going to do the jobs. So like you said, people want to line up work. It's a 2-year project. It's a big project. So I'm just wondering about that delay. And I do remember a conversation we had a couple of years ago, actually, because I snuck into some of these meetings or the engineering meetings. And I do remember there were some concerns about electrical in the drawings 2 or 3 years ago, if I'm remembering correctly on this. But anyway, I'm just wondering about again, how this delay is going to affect the cost, and again, the availability of people to actually do the job. So, yeah.
Yeah, good question again. Go back a few years in time, I'd call it COVID era pricing. That was a really uneasy time for trying to generate cost estimates because things were so volatile. And then we also did sometimes see the lack of competition amongst contractors and even vendors to some extent then. So I'd have more concern about impacts to cost. At the last, I would say 12 to 18 months, again, from projects we've tendered in this kind of field, we've seen quite a bit more stability in terms of equipment pricing, to the point where I don't think there'd be any volatility with that. It would really come down to, again, the competition amongst the bidders. So if there's only a couple of outfits looking for work, they're probably not going to feel as inclined to sharpen their pencil. Whereas if we see a good number of bidders, I think that's probably what's going to drive more competition in the pricing.
Okay, anything else for this one? Okay, want to talk about the next part?
Sure. So probably a little bit more straightforward to cover, but the other aspect of this being the budget for contract admin and site review. So really the construction phase of the project. To really try to summarize what contract administration and site review is all about from our perspective, it'd be confirming that you're getting what has been designed and specified in the project, confirming that you're paying the correct amount for the work that is done, providing you with good records of what and where new works have been built in the project, and assisting with plant commissioning and any issues that may arise through the warranty period. So it's really start to finish throughout the construction and commissioning. The site review component of that work typically involves having staff on site to review construction, take measurements, both for pay items and also for those record drawings, and assisting the contractor with any questions or requests that come up along the way. And we typically recommend that's done on a full-time basis for anything that's being buried. You got one chance to see it and to take those measurements and notes. Once works progress above grade and get out of the ground, it's a little bit less critical to have someone there all the time. Again, maybe depending on how much work is going on any given day. But when things get indoors and into enclosures and there's chance to see it after the fact, it can taper back to more of a part-time basis for that site review. Contract admin duties are more in the office with occasional site visits, and it's looking at shop drawings and payment certificates and things like that. For the budget part of it, once upon a time, this is a lot of years ago, it was relatively common practice to have the engineering costs for a project like this set as a percentage of construction value. It's typically not done that way anymore for municipal projects, but internally, we track kind of where our contract admin and site review costs fall compared to construction costs. And it's typically either side of about 7% of the construction costs for a project. So for this one, with the most current probable cost of $17.2 million, at 7%, the suggested budget for contract admin and site review would be $1.2 million over the course of that 2-year construction period. I just note those costs would exclude taxes and contingencies if things change much. The other thing I'd say is that again, that's a percentage kind of estimate right now. In our opinion, once the contract is awarded and we know which contractor we're dealing with and we know their schedule, that budget could be refined. We've certainly found over the years that some contractors do require a little bit more attention and time to I guess keep an eye on, maybe that's not the best way to say it, but to monitor progress and to deal with on a project. And some contractors that are very savvy at this kind of thing don't require quite as much time. Similarly, if they're very aggressive with their timing and their approach to the project, that also helps control costs if there's a shorter period for the overall construction. So really that's about it for what I want to say about that. But again, happy for any questions.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions on that? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, you made a good point on the anything underground and be making sure you're on site to see that, because once it's buried, it's buried. I'm just curious on communication then, on how your company communicates that they were there and they saw that, because if it's something gets buried and we don't know you were there, your staff was on holidays and there was no coverage, does that relate? Like, how is the communication and confirmation done on that?
So, anything that's buried, again, we'd have someone there full time, and if someone was sick or on holidays, we'd be lining up a standby person to come in. And in terms of how it's communicated, uh, at the completion of the project, we'll be providing you with a set of record drawings. So if any, if the elevation of where a pipe was installed changed, or the location on a site plan changed, those notes are manually recorded by our staff in the field. And then the drawing package for the project is updated at project completion, and a copy of drawings then returned to the owner and operator that has the updated information covered on that.
And then do we have the expected, like you say, depending on contractor and the babysitting you need to do, or your concern of a contractor, whoever it's awarded to, do we have the expected then hours in a week type thing, or for project that we'd expect from BM Ross then to be there so that we know we're getting value for our money?
Yep. So a lot of the contractors that we work with, it is either side of that 50-hour a week construction week. And so again, we for the duration that anything underground is happening, we would have someone there full time during that portion. The hours related to what I would call the contract administration, the sort of in-office support, that can really fluctuate over the course of a project. So to illustrate it, very early on, following tender award, the contractor would be, if they got their ducks in a row, bombarding us with shop drawings to review. This is them submitting that this is the proposed valve and pump and all this equipment, that we have to then review that to confirm, yep, you're going to be providing the right equipment that we specified and the township's paying for. So they want to get those out the door to us so that they can get ordering their equipment and line up for the project. So early on, the level of effort for the in-office staff can be quite heavy, reviewing that kind of element of the project. And then it really tends to taper off as the project extends. And once that's all done, then it comes down to reviewing payments on a monthly basis. If there are any change order requests or things like that along the way, reviewing those. But it's quite a bit heavier at the front end, and then tapers off towards the end.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, clarifications from council? Councillor Hodgins?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just looking ahead to construction and managing the project. I just want to ask about like working with the operating authority, Aqua, and how that works. And I understand they have been involved through the design process, and just wondering how we ensure that the operations are working for them.
Yeah, this is a very good point. We'd want them to be included, like, so for example, there'd be at least a monthly progress meeting with the contractor, with our contract administrator, and we'd always like the operator to be present at those. And that's really looking ahead to the next 4 weeks, what's going to transpire, what has to be planned for, and resolve any issues that might go along with that. Additionally, in our contract documents, and again, this kind of relates to the staging part that I talked about early tonight and some of the difficulties there. There are different steps or sequences in the project that will require, say, shutdown of certain parts of the plant. But again, because we're trying to keep the plant operational and not have bypasses, some of those shutdowns have to be very limited in nature. So in our contract documents, we'll stipulate for component A, B, C, and D, you're allowed 4 hours, 8 hours, whatever it might be, to shut down a certain piece of equipment. And in addition to that timing window, a stipulation that it has to be coordinated with the operating authority to make sure that they're fully on board with what's going on and when it's happening, so that they can be kept up to speed. And if there's something unique going on, like we want to avoid, say, a wet weather time of year where there's higher flows and things like that. You know, for our sake, for the operator's sake, but even for the contractor's sake, they don't want to be in over their head trying to do work at exactly the wrong time of year. So through those monthly site meetings and through what's already been kind of laid out and confirmed with Aqua, will stipulate how some of that sequencing has to happen and keep the operating authority happy during the project.
Okay, thanks. Just one last, maybe just a quick one. Like we've got this project designed, ready to tender, and I was just thinking like procurement and delivery model. We're going ahead with like a traditional design bid build. There's no sort of other models we're looking at this point. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Councillor Regan.
Thank you. Just really quick, I was just wondering too, just about during this process, how our staff are involved. And the reason I'm asking that, maybe asking Jeff as well, but one of the things too is when we're talking about possible shutdowns is communicating to residents things that they should or should not be doing, or whether or not it's going to be affecting them. We're going to get a lot of questions about that. Sewage treatment is near and dear to many people's hearts, especially when it doesn't work. So I'm just wondering how our staff would be, involved in that process, and either not, like I said, communicating and monitoring the project as well.
Yep. So those same monthly site meetings that we have, or there might be times where they're bi-weekly if there's a lot going on. We would certainly be inviting and encouraging township staff to come along so that they're fully aware of that. Chime in if I'm wrong, but I wouldn't anticipate anything going on there would be cause for any kind of requirement to notify the public that they need to reduce sewage generation or anything like that. I would typically wouldn't see that as part of a wastewater plant project.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and through the mayor, may I just follow up? So one of the things that BM Ross, with the reviewer that'll be on site, that's one of the things, even though we'll be involved with the monthly meetings and we'll be up to date on all the process going on, my staff should not get in between the operator and the constructor. So that's one of the important aspects that BM Ross will be to facilitate that area. Certainly we can communicate with the public. Certainly we'll be involved with the process, but we don't want to be that we want to make sure the communications are being performed between the contractor and the operator, with BM Ross in the middle of it, controlling things. So that's one of the things, one of the responsibilities of having a third person like BM Ross looking after the project. So I don't want it to seem that we're going to be in there mucking things up, because that's really not what my staff is there to do. So part of this is relying on BM Ross and their expertise to guide this project.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments or questions from anybody? No? Well, thank you very much for coming. I think that it was very timely, and it's exciting to see the timeline and know that things are actually going to start happening in the relatively near future. But appreciate the update, and think it's been good for all of us to get an understanding of perhaps some of the challenges that you've had that we don't necessarily hear about. So that's been a great update. And also, I mean, we've talked about it extensively, the approval coming from the ministry. And I'm glad to hear that you feel that it's imminent and that doesn't need to hold up the process, because that always is in the back of my head that we've still got to wait for that. So I'm appreciative of that, but glad that that's moving on. So good to see you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I will ask for a mover and a seconder to receive that for information. Counselor Regan, and Counselor Hodgins. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, on to our minutes. We have two sets of minutes in front of us from October 29th. That was a special meeting, and our regular council meeting minutes for November the 4th. If nothing needs to be amended, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those as circulated. Counselor Westman and Counselor Regan. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Got a number of items from the consent agenda. One in particular, 9.2, I'm going to pass over to Ron to speak to first, and then if there's any other items, we can discuss those.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The item 9.2 was an email that was emailed to the members of council with regards to the fact that the water and sewer bills for the period of July to September could not be mailed, and they could not be mailed due to the Canada Post strike. And we staff has fielded quite a few of complaints about that. Again, nobody likes to pay late fees, and I think when people realized that they had missed their bill, obviously human beings, we don't like to pay late fees. So immediately, it's like, oh, well, why is this and how did this happen? So what staff has done to try and combat this, because we knew this was going to be an issue with the Canada Post strike, was we advertised on our sign out front of the office here, Facebook page, our website, our township app. The message was to either call the office and we will give you the amount of your bill. And if you provide an email address, we will send you a copy of your bill, or alternatively, you can pick your bill up at the township office. But again, it's important to note that we were not in a position to be able to mail those because Canada Post was not accepting mail. So we could not mail them out. So how best to get the notice out? And again, we are one utility bill. If you are not or haven't taken advantage of our opportunity to sign up for getting your bill through email, which is your right. I mean, some people do not have computers, and we get that. But again, if you're using, if you're old school, and I'm old school, so I'll say that, but if you're still using the calendar, we send these bills out consistently 4 times a year. You should have it marked on your calendar, just like the tax due dates. The fact that you don't get your bill is not a reason not to pay it. You know it's coming, or you ought to know that it's coming. But it is an easy, and I'm not trying to dismiss the complaints. It is easy to forget, and people do forget. That's just the way it is. But when you do forget, there is a cost, because the people who have paid on time should not have to subsidize those who do not pay on time. And again, I think the positives, if there is a positive coming out of this, is there's a lot more people who signed up for getting their bill by email because of this issue. So that is a positive on our side. The complainant made a claim in his email here that said, township staff also informed me that during the postal strike, a small number of residents received hand-delivered bills. I can state unequivocally that is false. I believe the comment made to the person on the phone was that if somebody called and was not able to attend the office to pick up their bill for reason of a disability or whatever, that we would make every effort to deliver their bill. And we're a small, I like to think we're still a small community, and we help our neighbors, and we would do that. However, nobody did call with that, so it was not done. So there were no hand delivered bills. So it's not like we're treating people specially because we know them or anything like that. That did not happen. I also heard that there was two people had their fees waived or walked back, and so I dug into that one, and there was 2 incidents. One was with respect to a water tower bill, and that was a mistake on our part because we did have an email address, but for whatever reason, the email did not go out. So that is a mistake on our part. So we we corrected that mistake. The other one was more or less a crossover. By the time we had mailed out the bill, the person had already paid, so the account was not correct. But when somebody pays a bill online at the bank, say on Friday, we don't necessarily get notice of it till Monday. Well, if we get notice on Monday afternoon or Tuesday and we've generated the bills and mailed them out, there was a crossover. So that one was corrected at the time we found out, and those were the only two. So there is no, or there has not been any walk back of any fees with regards to this. So, again, I understand it. People, this is not an ideal situation. But again, if you didn't know that there was a mail strike going on, I don't know where you've been, because it was all over the news. It was communicated. I'm sure if you don't get your water and sewer bill by email, you don't get your Visa bill or your MasterCard bill or all this other stuff. So we're not the only ones. There's a number of people that people who are late are going to be mad at because they didn't get their mail. But again, I always look at it from the standpoint is there something that we could have done differently? And if there's a different way to advertise, hey, I'm open to any other suggestions as to how to get that message across. But I feel very confident in the way that this was handled through our staff, and I stand behind them 100%.
Right, thank you for that, Ron. I don't know if council had any comments to make on the letter that was received. Deputy Mayor Manders.
Well, I unfortunately got slapped with a late fee. And they didn't even deliver it to the chair beside Councillor Reagan for me. So I can assure you there was no special treatment. Yeah, it drove me to set up for the bill by email. I really never thought too much of it, as far as it was more a pride thing. Like, I always pay my bill, I pay it on time. All of a sudden I'm getting a late fee, and I'm not happy with myself. But in my mind, I want to blame Catherine. But yeah, it's definitely was my fault, my responsibility, and now I set up for bill by email. But yeah, it's too bad it happened. I don't think there's anything more staff could have done either. So thank you.
Any other comments on the letter, Councillor Westman?
Yeah, I've fielded quite a few concerns from the east side of the township and the Granton area. A lot of people that don't necessarily come over, may not see the sign, don't have, they have email, or they aren't as computer savvy. I think there's a lot of confusion about how it went down, and I wasn't able to give complete answers to people, so I did direct them to call the office. And I guess, I've had the question asked to me, can I ask council if there's any appetite to at least relieve the statement fees or something like that? So keeping my promise, I'm asking that question. Is there any appetite to at least relieve some of the charges? So
Are you making that a motion, or?
Yes, I suppose I am, for at least, some relief from it. That would be my motion, to have council consider some relief.
Okay, can we get a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hodgins. Okay, discussion on the motion. Is there, who wants to go to Deputy Mayor Manders? Unless, hold on 1 second, Dave. Is there anything that you wanted to add, Councillor Westman, at this time?
Through you, Madam Mayor. As a councillor, I fully understand the hurdles that staff had to go through. But I also, as a ratepayer myself, I understand that. Personally, I set mine up a long time ago to be looked after through email, and while I still receive a paper statement, my bill is paid by direct deposit automatically at the time of billing. So, I tried to recommend that to the ratepayers that had concerns, but there's many of them that are not as tech savvy, that are not set up that way, and then it's kind of a one-off. The postal strike was a little bit of a confusion for everybody. So in keeping with the request that has been made to me, I'm asking council to consider at least a measure of relief from the late fees and statement fees. That's
Okay. Deputy Mayor Mander.
Yeah, I guess my only comment, my only concern with that is just that it is that we don't like, I don't like using the term setting precedent, but basically if a person's on holidays or they don't get their bill in time, I mean themselves, and they don't do any, they could come back and say the same thing, come to their counselor and say, hey, I was in the hospital, I was this, I was that, and it really is alleviating their responsibility. And that's why that's why I'm not going to vote in favor of it. And I just, again, I feel it was, in my situation, it was my personal responsibility to see that my bill got paid. So I just thought I'd make the comment. Thank you.
Any other comments on the motion on the floor? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just by way of numbers, I received 5 phone calls and one person stopped me while I was putting out my garbage. But just about this, and they're all telling me they're all in good standing with respect to paying their bills. So my comment to them was that, you knew the bill was coming. I'm always good about paying, my bills. So I just actually believe it. I paid it on time, but it was on the date. And I'm just wondering, my understanding is that there was just like a comedy of errors where we weren't sure about the strike. And to me, it just seems like there's just this anomaly with respect to this. I don't want to set a precedent. I don't want to, but I do feel, when I thought about this, I just felt that we should be looking at maybe some kind of, when I say forgiveness, and I don't know how many there were. And I know staff did everything they need to do. And that's not my, any concern with that. But I just feel that there was just so many mitigating factors with this, that it just seemed to me that it was, and again, like when I received that many calls, I felt, it's just like I probably one of the people were getting, I mean, it was $15 or $20 or whatever but I received those calls and people were actually quite passionate about the fact like I've paid my bills all the time, it really wasn't fair, I didn't get it. And I get the argument where people aren't online and they're not tech savvy and all that and that sort of thing. But again, I think we might want to look at it again, because I don't think, and maybe even have a policy, because I don't think there's a policy that really speaks to this. But again, I think when I weigh everything, I really do think we might want to maybe look at this. And I don't know how you would figure that out, but again, it's just one of those things where I don't think there was a, again, I think there was several factors that were against everyone. So it was I guess a no-win situation would be the best way to say it. So thank you.
Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I share a lot of the concerns that Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman said. I just wanted to ask if, just through to staff, whether we do have any like data or stats on how many late fees were issued, for example, or how much we're talking about financially here, whether we have that or not.
So through the mayor, I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers, but I think what I would caution council is the majority of our residents paid their bills on time, and they have done this. So like I understand we all want to be nice to the people who complain, but with all due respect, 5 people complained. Is that enough to warrant us walking back a policy here? I'd caution you that whatever you do at this point is gonna take more work. And are you resolving maybe this issue and creating how many more people are gonna come in and go, hey, I paid it. Why? What? I just see more problems coming at this point. And again, everybody likes to be the good guy here, but at some point there is personal responsibility. I heard the deputy mayor say it, and I think he said it very well. The onus is on the person to do it, and we tried. One person actually complained and said, and I think it was Tracy that was talking to this person, said, I've seen you walk by or run by the office. Did you not see the sign? Oh, I never look at the sign. Okay, hearing that, my sympathy level goes right out the window, and That's it. I don't think you're going to please everybody. And I just think that we have to try and do what's best for the majority. And I think we've done that.
More questions?
Okay, thank you. I think it is a thing about fairness, and I think, like Councilor Regan said, I think a lot of the people who probably got dinged are people that always pay their things on time, and we're looking at exceptional circumstances, and I'm not necessarily looking at, I think, just this one complaint or the letter that we received, but just more holistically. And we've always had this process that got interrupted due to this Canada Post strike. So I do think it's challenging to, I think, impose the penalty when the way we issue our bills, for some it's by mail, for some it's by email. The mail people, that's how they get it. That's how they've always got it. And we couldn't get it to them. We tried everything else, we made our best efforts. I think staff did an excellent job, but I think it's just, I still can't really, I think, reconcile the situation of someone who has always received that bill and they pay that bill and they didn't receive the bill and now they're being penalized for it. So I will be supporting Councillor Westman's motions for relief.
Any other comments before I weigh in? So,
Oh, sorry, Kathy.
oh, yep.
Mayor Kathy.
Yep.
Just, so one, there hasn't been a dollar value assigned to the motion. So I don't know what I don't know what Councillor Westman was thinking of. And then I guess I want to look to Tina, I think, for advisement. I'm sorry about this. I know I shouldn't be, but on pecuniary interest for myself on receiving money back then on that bill, and maybe should be declared a pecuniary interest at this time.
Well, that is a question for you to take up with the integrity commissioner or legal. Your clerk can't give you that. No, like in all
Well,
seriousness, our clerk cannot give you that advice. So
I know. If I sit beside her, I'd whisper in her ear. I know. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, I know. So again, I guess I need to declare pecuniary interest right now because council right now is going to debate on giving me money back.
Yeah. Okay.
So I understand what you're saying. However, along the same vein, every member of council also pays property taxes, and you also decide on your property tax rate of increase or anything else. So it's yeah. I'm just saying, keep an open mind.
So my comment, sorry.
No, then I'll you know what? I'll just let my comments stand and I will proceed to vote.
Okay. So for me, like, I appreciate what everybody's saying. I do. However, this is the process that we've had in place. This was not the first Canada Post strike that we had gone through this year. There had been one prior where we had advertised about email. We had gone through all of this during that strike. And whether or not there wasn't a water bill during that time, I don't know. But certainly at that time, there was the same sort of communication that we had with the community about changing how people receive their mail. And we did that with the strike that happened in September into October. This is the process that we followed. I can't see walking that process back today. If council wants to entertain a new process for going forward, then I think that's the discussion to have. But to go back and try to make, I won't even say make amends, but to try to do something, I don't think is the way to go about doing it. Because to that point of the deputy mayor, there is no dollar value attained. The other thing too is, are we setting ourselves up for a precedent? Because they didn't get I always get my bill through the mail. I'm a mail person. I didn't get it. So are we setting ourselves up because they didn't get the bill through the mail that can be walked back? I don't think that this is the way to go about solving the issue. I think you can learn from what worked and what didn't work and improve the process going forward. So I can't support trying to bring sort of relief. And I guess like there's so much question as to what is the relief for? Is it, the late penalty? Is it the statement fee? Like, what is the relief for? And it's too bad Catherine's not here because I don't even know how, from an accounting standpoint, how staff would administer that at this stage in the game. It's been clear, staff has made it clear that the majority of our residents paid the bill. They found a way to pay the bill. They came to the office to pick it up, or they switched the manner in which they received the bill. And I just think that if you want to improve the process, then that's the discussion to have. And with that in mind, I can't support the motion on the floor. So. We can, we can also ask for a report back from staff with more of these details, so we have a better understanding of how many residents it is, the dollar, that sort of thing, and how does staff, how would staff go about walking it back or providing relief? So.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor. So it's my motion, so I'm willing to entertain that, where we table the motion until staff has had an opportunity to bring back some more detail. Yeah.
If I can make a suggestion, with the permission and approval of the mover and seconder of the motion, you can modify the wording of the motion to say that you request staff to bring forth a report at the next meeting regarding the costs of a change.
Yeah. Councilor Regan.
Also include getting a policy going forward, because you had mentioned this is an learning opportunity for us, so we could have that report, which may include a policy with respect to if this ever happens again. I would like to see that. I'm just suggesting that.
That's up to the mover and the seconder. That's
But
nothing to do with me. So.
Madam Mayor, if I could, I would suggest that if we're going to go with the direction of a new policy, we may not, 2 weeks may not be enough to get an answer back on that, on a new policy.
And
So,
to me, that is two different things. That is either one, you're looking for relief, or you're looking to do something different going forward. So,
Okay, so as the mover and with consent of the seconder, I'm willing to table this, change it to have staff bring back a report with the values and like that kind of thing included, so that we can make a decision based on, the impact it's going to have. I'm also very open to the idea of reviewing policy, because this is a kind of a one-off wonky kind of a thing here. It did affect a lot of people. And my biggest concern in all of this is that there are people who, for whatever reason, whether it's a matter of not having the technology or the understanding to make it happen, there's there's 6,000 stories here. So I just want to be sure that we aren't disadvantaging anybody that had no way to make this happen properly for themselves. So anyhow, I'm looking for guidance from staff to say, okay, we change the motion to have staff bring a report at the next meeting with the values, so we can make a better decision on what to do going forward. Okay.
Yeah, and I'd accept that amendment.
so with the permission of the mayor, the recommendations that that's a major change from what you've had before. So I would suggest you withdraw your first motion and introduce a new a new motion, just to make things clean.
All right, through you, Madam Mayor, I withdraw my first motion and I introduce a new motion to direct staff to prepare a report on the late fees and what are they called? The statement fees for all those affected during the mail strike, and for council to consider and make a decision at a later date.
Just to confirm the wording, the motion is that staff bring back a report outlining the dollar value of rebating late fees / statement fees for further council consideration and discussion. Okay.
So I guess I still have to, so you said you were okay with the first motion being taken off. So then will you second the second motion? Okay. So any further discussion on that one? All in favor?
I'm opposed.
That is still carried though. I'm opposed as well, but that still is carried. Okay. Okay. All right, so that was that one. Were there any other items on the consent agenda that council wanted to speak to? Councillor Hodgins.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll just mention briefly item 9.6, the letter from the MECP regarding the CA boundaries, and maybe I'll touch on this in a bit when I talk about the ABCA update, but just noting that the consultation period is open on ERO until December 22nd, and I'll speak to this a little bit more, but just wanted to flag that item.
Do we know if anybody's going to, like, if from a staff perspective, if there's going to be any comments made?
Through the chair, there is a online consultation session being held tomorrow on this, and I am participating and will take notes.
Okay, were there any other items on the consent agenda that I want to speak to? So we pulled 9.2 out of the recommended motion. So the recommended motion will be that consent items 9.1 and 9.3 through 9.7 on the November 17th, 2025 agenda be received for information. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All in favor? And that's carried. On to correspondence, there's just the one resolution that has been received. Didn't know if there was any conversation on that one. If not, I would ask for a mover and a seconder that we receive and file correspondence items as listed. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Hodgins. All in favor? And that's carried. On to committee reports. Blue Water.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
CEDC?
Nothing to report, Madam Mayor.
Oh, nothing from Lake Huron, nothing from the fire boards, ABCA.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just mention there's quite a few attachments there on item 11.5, but the last one, item 7, is our minutes from the special meeting on November 6th. So there's a pretty good summary there of what was discussed. There was a good presentation from General Manager Heinbuck. So I'd encourage you to read that if you want a quick update on there. Not really too much more new information aside from what the province has released so far, but we do know that with the proposed consolidation as it was currently proposed, we would still be split with 2 CAs. Even though there's only 7 across the province, we still have a split. And I'm sure we'll have more updates on this as we go.
Okay, thank you for that update. And we will be looking anxiously for more to come on that file. Parks and Recreation,
I have nothing, Madam Mayor, sorry.
Trails and Connectivity.
Nothing to report, no.
And then there is the draft minutes from the Finance Committee there for your information. And if there was any questions. No. Okay, I don't believe there's a staff report, nothing. So we don't have anything from finance, planning. And I believe the next two items are yours, Dan.
Yeah, so through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor, members of council. So the first item on the agenda tonight is with respect to a requested red line amendment. In this case, a minor red line for a draft plan of subdivision for the approved phase 1 of the Timber Ridge subdivision. So in this case, the applicant is requesting to redline the plan, specific to the northeast corner of the multifamily block, or medium density block, that being block 62 in phase 1 of the development. And the reason why they're requesting this is that they intend to construct an interim stormwater management pond in this location, because they have had troubles with trying to secure access to the regional stormwater facility that was originally contemplated in the draft plan conditions. So this would place a temporary pond or an interim stormwater solution at that new block within block 62. And then the hope is that sometime in the future, this would be removed, the interim solution, and they would be required to connect to the regional stormwater management facility that is on the township-owned lands. So in order to accommodate this request, the applicant is also required to modify the preliminary conditions of draft plan approval, which would allow them the opportunity to temporarily connect to this interim stormwater management pond. This would require that the applicant also identify their future obligation within a subdivision agreement to connect to the regional stormwater facility. So as identified in the report, I am recommending council authorize staff, in this case, to issue a letter of support related to the requested red line amendment of the draft plan approved subdivision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions or comments on this? I guess I have a question. Number one, what does interim mean? Like, in that it's not supposed to be obviously permanent. Is there a time, is there a lifeline for that? And then I was just curious on the map, if I'm looking at the map correctly, there's like, so there's the red line where the temporary facility will go. But then opposite that, there's red lines essentially where there would be, I would say the lots, the townhouses. And I'm just curious why those are redlined.
So through the chair, to the mayor, is that, are you referring to the red lines on Street B? Yeah, okay, so those are the originally approved lotting fabric of the single family homes within the subdivision. It's just there, you can't really see it, but in between lots 11 and 10, and then on lots 7 to 8, there's kind of a couple dashed lines in between the two lots, and those are for easements for utility purposes. So it's just showing the revised lot lines based on those utility easements being placed within that area. So there's no actual physical change to the lotting fabric in that area. And then the question about interim. It's an interesting term, honestly. We're calling it I don't want to use the term temporary. Even though it's actually listed on the plan as temporary. Because technically speaking, the township will require the developer to build the pond as if it could remain there forever. But we prefer that not to happen. In this case, we would like them to connect to the regional stormwater facility. So as part of the pre-servicing agreement for this particular block, there was a 3-year time frame attached to that interim solution, at which time they are technically required to make their best efforts to connect to the regional stormwater facility. And hopefully by that time, we'll have more clarity as to what's going to happen within the remainder of this subdivision as well as the adjacent lands. And we can work on agreements between all parties to have the regional stormwater facility in place.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments? So you've got the recommended motion in front of us that the County of Middlesex is advised that the Township of Lucan Biddulph supports the red line amendment request to draft plan of subdivision 39T-LB 2002 and that no further notice be required. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, the next one, please.
And so through the chair, the second item on the planning report agenda is related to a second request for a minor red line amendment for a draft plan of subdivision. This case, it's for the Lucan Pembroke Lucan Land Corporation site. And it's just on the north end of Kleinfeld Drive, which is the extension of the cul-de-sac. So in this particular case, subject to the detailed engineering review and plans of this particular subdivision, it was identified that there's an existing overhead Hydro 1 hydro line that runs essentially across the length of Lot 1 behind the existing residence within the area. So Hydro 1 has requested that that particular hydro line as an overhead line stay on its own separate block and not on the individual landowners for block 1, which is kind of resulting in a 3-meter request to create a block for that separate overhead hydro line. And then the corresponding shift of all of the single family lotting blocks across the subdivision. So there's no, just so council's aware, there's no additional lots being created in this case for residential purposes. It's just a lot to accommodate that 3-meter easement or overhead hydro line within the area. So I would note there is a little bit of changes to the existing lot fabric within the area, including the backs of the properties. As you can kind of see, they are changing on the red line. This was reviewed by the Assault Bayfield Conservation Authority, as this is within the potential 2-phase hazard lands area. And they did not have any concerns with respect to the revised lotting patterns, as it is outside of the floodway zone. So with that said, I am recommending council authorize staff to issue the letter of support related to the requested red line amendment for the draft approved subdivision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Questions or comments on this one? Councillor Hodgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. Dan, with the proposed red line, I just noticed there's kind of like an opening there between lots 4 and 5, and it used to be sort of parallel to Kleinfeld Avenue, and now it's kind of skewed a little bit. And what is that opening there for? Is that a potential trail, or I'm just wondering, if that's become modified?
Yeah, so through the chair, twofold actually. So it's actually it's meant for infrastructure. So it's meant for the stormwater infrastructure to run through that area to the drain. However, it also the intent is to also provide trail access to the township owned lands to the north, essentially. So the intent of that is to allow for future connection through across the drain to Princess Street.
Okay, thank you. And but we're okay with that layout because we kind of have a not, parallel, whatever you want to call it, whether it's a right of way. And I don't know if that's driven by the lot 4 15.2 meter width. Should that be squared up there, or is that okay as it is?
Yeah, so through the chair, it's lot 5 actually, because the lot line is shifting further. If you're looking at the plan south, they need that separation to allow for the storm infrastructure to run through there between the lotting patterns. So lot 5's south property line shifting down is requiring lot 4's property line to shift further south as well. I know it is skewing it a little bit in terms of it's not exactly 100% perpendicular or parallel. But yeah, it's the best case scenario for what they're trying to achieve.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we have in front of us the motion that the County of Middlesex is advised that the Township of Lucan Biddulph supports the red line amendment request to draft plan of subdivision 39T-LB 2301, and that no further notice be required. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Reagan. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks for that, Dan. Okay, Jeff, your report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a report that I put towards council. I did have a request come in to my office from residents on Scotts Drive. They have requested that their portion of the sidewalk be closed for winter maintenance, be closed for the winter. And that would give them the advantage that they then could park, use their whole laneway for parking. Normally they'd be parking on the street through most of the year, and then when the time they obviously can't do that. So this is a request that has come through. Normally I would look at this and you know, see what you know, what conflicts come up when we start closing infrastructure. In this case, this section of sidewalk on Scotts Drive is a dead end. It is only a portion that is in front of the townhouses there. It actually is would be beneficial to the Public Works Department to actually close this so that we did not have to do winter maintenance on it. So I can't say that I have any objection to this request. But I think the only thing I would point to council would be if we were setting a precedence in closing some infrastructure. But then at the same time, a closure like this under minimum maintenance standards, which can be done, would be something that I would require to come back to council each year for approval. So this is not something that council's deciding long-term. It'd be something that we could review. And again, at any time, I did send letters to every resident on Scotts Drive, not just the 6 that provided letters in the townhouses that requested it. I sent letters to the houses across the street as well and did not receive any feedback, good or bad, but I was asking for feedback, mostly for if they were in disagreement with the sidewalk closure, which I did not receive any. So I would say that to council that this is only a one-time at this point, see how it goes. And from a departmental review, it actually works for us. So I do recommend that we try it this year. But at the same time, I open it up for discussion with council.
Great, thank you for that, Jeff. All right, council, questions or comment on the recommendation and report in front of you? Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, through you. Just curious if we'll, in addition to speaking with the residents out there and making sure everyone's aware of what's going to be happening, will we have any sidewalk closed signs or any other thing just to make sure people are aware? Maybe people that don't live there might be passing through.
Yeah, with the department does have sidewalk closed signs. So even though, you know, there maybe is some cost to installing the signs and maintaining the signs for the wintertime, we do have them, so there would not be an additional cost that we would go out and spend on this request. And it would be signed, and no matter the sidewalk would be closed, whether there's snow or no snow. It just would be closed at the start of the winter season and maintained till the winter season is up and the signs are removed and the barricades.
Any other comments? Okay, and I know you said it a number of times during your report, but this is just for a 1-year request. And should the residents want to do this again, they would have to come back on a yearly basis to request this, right?
Yeah, that's correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Yep, for sure, Jaden.
Sorry, just one more thing I just thought about. Do we have to like do this formally through a bylaw or anything to make it official, so it's officially closed, or is that something that we should look into, or maybe just leave it with the director?
That's maybe something that I'd have to look into officially. I know we've done it in other I've done it with other municipalities in the past, but it's been a repeat motion, so I don't know what took place behind the scenes. Because this is the first one, then maybe that's something that I'd have to look a little further into.
So there might be one coming back. Okay, if there's no other discussion on that, the motion is that report number PW-26-2025 be received for information, and further that council direct staff to close the sidewalk on Scotts Drive for the 2025-2026 winter season. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Nothing from Parks and Rec, anything from Economic Development, nothing. Other business, there is one item, I believe, in our business arising. If you want anything added, please let Tina know. Councillor comments. Councillor Regan.
Actually, the sidewalk discussion was just interesting because I was just going to ask of Jeff, if I could, I noticed the guys are putting up those stakes in the sidewalk that's on Nicolline between just at John Street there, the sidewalk that kind of goes nowhere. There were some discussions in the past about whether or not they were going to extend that, what we were going to do with that. And of course, they're setting it up for plowing in the winter. So we talked about it being a bit of a safety issue because that sidewalk there, whether if you plow it, you walk down that sidewalk, it goes nowhere. Kids got to jump over the snowbanks. People got to come over the snowbanks right onto the street. We were talking about maybe just closing that off in the winter, not maintaining that sidewalk. And there was some discussions about that. I'm just wondering, because I know last year when we had a great deal of snow, and the guys were plowing that out, that again, people trying to use that piece of sidewalk instead of just coming across John and crossing John and then over Nicolline to the sidewalks and then coming down that way. There were people still using it, jumping the snowbanks and that. I'm just wondering if we're going to do anything with that, if that's going to stay open. Because I know that that plow has to drive down that, and it's not a very long section of sidewalk. They have to drive down it, then they have to back up because they were coming right across and tearing up the lawns right across the front of it. So I'm just wondering if we had thought about that or any more thought to that.
Yeah, and through the mayor, I can look at that. I know that's one of the spots we have talked about, that it's a stub of a sidewalk that really should have either been extended or removed. So in the process, I can take a look at that and come back to council with a recommendation.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's good.
No problem. Any other councillor comments?
I'm okay right now. Thanks.
Yep. No councillor comments. All right. Then we have 2 bylaws in front of us. Our confirming bylaw and then the zoning bylaw for William Street. So the zoning bylaw for the other one doesn't come in? No. Oh, okay, gotcha. So it's just the 2, the confirming and the zoning bylaw for William Street. A mover, so the motion is that bylaws 43-2025 and 206-2025 be read a first, second, and third and final time and be adopted. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman, all in favor? That's carried. And resolve that the council meeting be adjourned at 7:52 p.m. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan, all in favor? That's carried. Reminder before we close off that with the Santa Claus parade's coming up, and the mayor's breakfast. I should have put that, and the lighting of the lights. So yes, I guess I should have put this in councillor comments. Lighting the lights is Friday night, and the scouts will be on hand for hot dogs and hot chocolate, 6 o'clock, right? And mayor's breakfast next week. You can still sign up and Santa Claus parade, right? See you then.